YouTube, what's up with it? We back again. I'm back again. Lexi had to work. But anyways, we going to get into this. This going to be part one out of I don't know how many parts. But it's about how absent fathers affect men in general. Because it's something we can all relate to, especially, coming from our community. But in this video, we're going to break it down in three different parts. The first part going to be your childhood. How absent father affects childhood. Then we're going to get into when you become a young man, your teen years up to the maybe early 20s, and then how it affects men, because it's like three different, stages of it. A little bit about my background story. I got five siblings. My mom has two kids, me and my younger sister, but my dad got five kids. It's an older brother, me, a younger brother. I got a sister, and then my baby sister. We all got different moms except for me and my baby sister. We got the same mom and dad. But looking back at your childhood, because your childhood is so innocent, because you don't really know what's going on. You a kid, but once you start getting older, you look back at certain stuff like, that wasn't right, because a lot of stuff just seemed normal. Like for instance, growing up on my street, I want to say out of all our friends growing up, we used to play and stuff. Like two people on our street had a mom and a dad in the same house, but everybody else was raised by single moms. Some are dads had other kids and stuff like that. Typical stuff growing up though, that's the norm. It ain't nothing out the usual about that. And then when you get older, looking back, it's like, dang, that's kind of messed up. That's statistics right there, like a mug. That's accurate. You know what I mean? But kids, you kind of look at things just like regular. And then you got some people that I guess they might have a dad that come around every once in a while, or once a year, or just don't show up at all. They still got the high hopes, like, man, maybe my dad come for my birthday. They filled with joy, their kids. Or maybe my dad's superhero. You know what I mean? And like with us, how it's like when you become a parent, being a parent is number one. You put your kids first, and then you might have some me time left over. Well, our dad was the opposite. It was him first, him time, all about him. And then when he ain't had nothing else to do, then he might come around and do like some dad stuff. It was kind of one of them situations. But it seemed normal, like we got to go over his house sometime. But then we be looking back, me and my sisters, like, they be like, man, you was babysitting us the whole time. He'd disappear for hours and pop back up. And we outside playing, little stuff like that. That's kind of how things was for us. And people that know me, like, would see like my dad would take us to school sometime, little stuff like that. So on the outside looking in, you would think he was a great father, but he don't really know nothing about his kids. You know what I mean? Not going in dogging him, nothing like that. That's just, how our situation was. But, typical kid stuff, you think, I thought I had a cool dad growing up. He rode motorcycles and stuff. I'm like, man, my dad cool. And then the older I got, this is where the changes start to affect you. Because your childhood, you don't really understand what's going on, especially when you got a single mother. And this is what helps. If you got one of those mothers like mine, for example, knew what it was, but she wasn't one of those parents to dog the other parent. She still like, respect adults, stuff like that. And at the end of the day, she knew I was going to get older and see what was going on. And so when you become a child, you go from innocent and joyful. And then when you hit the teen years, especially as a young man, this is where the resentment come in. This is where the anger start to kick in a little bit. Because dang, now looking back, we used to fight a lot growing up on my street, but the ones that had like a mom and dad wasn't as violent. You know what I mean? Like the single mom kids, boy, we used to throw down in the street. That's kind of how we got down. We couldn't control our emotions because, at the time, not realizing we picked up feminine traits from our mothers. Mothers, or women in general, they react off emotions a lot more. And when you a kid growing up, kids is like sponges. You absorb what's around you, and that's kind of what you pick up on. You get mad, you get upset, you act out on it. And a father being around is supposed to mold you to be like, hey, come here, have a seat, son. It's going to be all right, man. Don't do all that screaming and hollering. You know what I mean? But we miss that out, and this would end up happening in our communities. That becomes the cool thing. Tell me I'm lying. Everybody know how, hey, bro, don't you look at Whoop-de-Woo the wrong way, boy. He gonna turn up on you. You say the wrong thing and such, and that gets you kind of, more respect by not controlling your emotions. But in reality, that's like, bro, that's female stuff. You supposed to be cool, calm, and collective, man. Like, you ain't supposed to let stuff make you crack under pressure and somebody look at you wrong, you supposed to be able to blow that off, man. That's you grown, you moving like a grown man. And that's some of the stuff we don't learn until, we're a little bit older. I got some notes on this too, because I got a whole lot to, tap into. So the acting out, the resentment, you pick up a lot of your mother's traits because now you start to realize a lot of people don't understand this about kids, but think back to when you was a kid. Kids get their own mind at some point. You see what's going on, you starting to watch and you pay attention to behavior habits, and when people say things and they don't live up to what they say, like you start catching on and you feel a type of way as you know what I mean, you get older. And this where a lot of the young men jump into the streets at this age and you don't really understand why. But in reality, I know I always want to hang with my older cousins, the older homies, stuff like that. My uncles, little stuff like that is like what I thought was cool. Because at the end of the day, you looking for that void that's missing from you and your father figure. And you find it somewhere else. Sometimes you find it in the wrong place and the wrong reasons. This ain't what you really need in your life. But you feel like, you drawn to certain stuff like, man, this is cool, man. I'm hanging with the older homies. Like, in reality, you just trying to fill that void and you don't understand exactly what it is you're going through at the moment. And a lot of that anger comes from there. And a lot of young men, like, to get in trouble at school. I know I was one of them, stayed in trouble. Me and my friends at school that got in trouble a lot. Shoot, we ain't have active fathers in our life, which is crazy, not knowing that at the time. But looking back, it's like, dang, we was all going through similar situations. A lot of my homies is locked up, didn't have like that father figure and stuff to really mold them. So what happened is you think you a man at the time and you trying to jump into a man's world and move like a grown man, but you don't know nothing about being a man because you only know what you learned in the house with your mama. That's just how our community is. And I think a lot of my resentment carried from my teen years all the way up until maybe 2 years ago. And I'm 29 going on 30. So I'm just now getting into the grown man aspect of everything. And I'll tell you, for me personally, learning what it's like to go through life as a young black man in the way that society works, that like really took my anger to another level. Cause it's like, bruh, you ain't teach me none of this. Like, it's kind of like being pushed off a plane with no parachute, or you got a parachute and ain't nobody told you how to use it. So you just fall. And that's kind of what it's like growing up without that father figure and going into the real world. It's like, as a young black man, the world is already set up against you. It's set up for you to lose automatically. And it's important for fathers to really teach you how to maneuver through this life and survive. And it's kind of selfish on their end that they don't do that, the absent ones. And that's where a lot of my anger came from. Like, bro, I really can't fool with dude now. Like, you ain't taught me none of this. But on a bigger scale, things always go your way. Even when you feel like things don't go your way, as far as your purpose, everything in your life goes your way. And I think if I did have that bond, that father bond like I was supposed to have, I wouldn't be the person I am. I wouldn't have the hunger that I got. For example, if I knew, man, anytime I'm going through something, Pops, man, I need your help. I need your advice. If I had that, I wouldn't have gained the wisdom that I got. If I was able to be like, hey, man, Pops, man, I'm short on some money, man. Can you help me out? I wouldn't have grinded as hard as I grinded to get to where I'm at. I wouldn't have went to pursue a career and figure out how to make things happen, from my own fuel. And that helped me out in my situation. The same with somebody else. Maybe it wasn't meant for you to have that father figure, because would you really be you? You know what I mean? That's just more on a bigger scale as far as following your purpose in life. You know what I mean? And then crossing over from like the young man to the grown man part comes understanding, right? Now, this is what people have a misconception on. It's the difference between understanding and agreeing. You can understand something and not agree with it. You know what I mean? And I had to understand that maybe this dude don't want to be a good father. And that's not saying that's okay, but that's cool if that's your thing. Because look at it like this. I got a close friend of mine. His father came back around when he was 25 and he was pissed. And this when I kind of realized that I was starting to change, my whole perception changed on, fathers and sons and stuff like that. Because he mad. He reminded me of like that Will Smith episode on Fresh Prince when he was going off about his dad. Like, I felt the same vibe. And his main thing was like, man, I would have did this. I would have did that. If I was my kid, I would do this. And I'm like, But realize what you said over and over and over. You said I. It's one of you, billions of men on this planet, billions of humans on this planet. This one I is not going to think like everybody else, and everybody else ain't going to think like you. And that's where you're going to find yourself disappointed all the time in life, especially as a man, expecting everybody to move how you move. You got to move the way you move and focus on that, and everybody else going to do their thing. Hopefully they on the same page as you, and that's the people that, you keep around. But at the end of the day, ain't nobody got to do nothing like how you do it, and don't nobody owe you nothing in this world. And thankfully, if somebody's nice enough to do you a favor and be generous to you, that's dope. That's the people you want around. But don't nobody owe you nothing in this world. And when you understand that, you look at life different. And once you understand that, shoot, some people don't want to be dads. Some people had a terrible father and they do one or two things. You already know. They're going to be just like their daddy, or they're going to be like, man, I don't want to be nothing like dude, man. I'm going to be in my kid's life all the time. I'm going to make sure we live in the same house. You're going to do one or two, and that all falls into your purpose to make you who you are. Once you understand that, you don't really get upset about stuff like that. And that's what I had to learn. Like in my early to mid 20s, me and this dude didn't get along. And I had to understand this is not my type of person that I can deal with. And that's fine. And I just left it at that. It's not out of anger. It's just like out of the way that I carry my life, the type of energy I like around me. This is my vibe. This is how I move. This is the type of people I like to have around me. And I'd rather not be around somebody that's like that. But I still accept you for who you are. You know what I mean? That's where the peace comes in. This is where you lose all the anger you had built up, and you just understand people going to be the way they are. But a lot of the times, some people can't snap out of that anger. And the first step is understanding where the anger come from in the first place. This is where it comes down to being logical. This is like undoing kind of what our mothers, not mothers taught us to do, but the actions that we absorb from our mothers, the emotions that we got growing up in these single households. Take those emotions, analyze them. You upset? I'm mad. Why am I mad? I'm mad because ABC. What can I do about this anger? What control do I have on this situation? You might not be able to fix everything, but you can accept it in the moment that this is what it is, and me being angry is not going to fix this situation. And that'll bring you back down. You may still feel a type of way, but that's how you control your emotions. And that's something I had to learn, you know what I mean? And I noticed this, now that I'm older, I always want to hang around older men because it was a void. I never understood that until now. I'm looking back like, dang, I got a bunch of older homies I'm cool with. Like, and my girl's uncle, he older than me, but that's the friend I made when I moved to Pittsburgh, and his homie. They both in their 40s, I'm in my 20s, and these my homies. And that comes from like, dang, I always had a void that I need to fill. And that's cool. Sometimes you come across these people in life, and these are the father figures. Yeah, flesh, as far as flesh-wise, you may not have that bond with, your donor, but you can build these bonds with other wise men. And a lot of these men have been in your situation. They know what it's like. And what happens, the whole purpose of life is this. You might see somebody just like you, and you reach out and you be that father figure. A positive one, I hope. Don't be having the young homies out here crashing out, doing nothing stupid. But you could be like that. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to them three things. Your childhood, that young man, rebellious stage we all went through, and hopefully everybody get to live to become, a man. Not age-wise, but mentally become, wise as a man and have understanding on why things are the way they are. And I'm gonna come back with even some more because I got stories, and then I got a lot of my friends and family that want to jump on here and tell how it affected them. But that's just kind of like a part one on how it affected me growing up as a man. And if I can go back and change it and have like that great dad, I don't think I want that. At this age, I may later on down the line maybe be like, man, I needed that. But I feel like this is what benefited me to get to where I'm at in life. I wouldn't have had this hunger to be great, to always, pursue my dreams, because this came from where you're going to have to figure this out. You're going to have to make sure your mama's straight. You're going to have to make sure your sister's straight. I got to make sure my siblings straight because our father didn't do it. So that's what brought me to be who I am today. And it's some deep stuff. We ain't even get into all the statistics and and all the scientific terms on why young men are this way. But in a nutshell, in our community, this is kind of what a lot of us went through, and this is how it affected us. But we turned out all right. If you're watching this, you done turned out all right, man. And you're going to be all right, and you're going to be a good dad. And if you already a father, I'm sure you already doing your thing. It is what it is. And that's just part one. It's more on the way. Grown men with daddy issues.